intro is up.
If you're sitting here watching this stream today, you cannot underestimate how ahead of the curve you are right now.
Bitcoin looks tired. Altcoins look hungry.
I'm just not quite sure that Bitcoin has any more solves.
I still think this thing is really worth a lot more than it is.
This stuff's spooky, man. These chaos PRZs are intense.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Solana is highly performant and has the team with the experience to support it.
$4,800 Ethereum. That's a big, big move here.
Whatever you do, always play from a position of strength. No worries, baby. We got you. Hey, it worked. Welcome back, everybody, to DeltaFi on Hxro Labs. I'm your host, RT. I be your host today, boy. RT here, sitting with Gunny on my right, your left, and old Rob Levy and Messi. We got the full squad today. What's going on, guys?
Oh, man.
Okay. I thought it was just me. You know, on our end, everybody kind of looks like Smurfs.
Like Oompa Loompas.
Yeah, you look like Smurfs.
happened?
And, you know, I don't have my...
No, it's just on Rendezvous.
Background up either.
We look tanned and summer-like and glowing on YouTube.
This is what your green screen looks like if I do that. The chroma.
Yeah, hold on. No, hold on. I've got to... I said I got a new computer, so I'm
your computer's like set to like, I do my own green screen.
You literally looked like that Smurf episode when they got bit by the purple Smurfs.
What?
Anybody remember that one? Or is that
I haven't
a
actually
boomer thing?
I actually see the Smurfs movie yet.
I'm just
on,
going to find a green background. And then
Okay, yeah.
business.
We'll go back to your... What is that? It looks like a computer chair with feathers on it. So who's been looking at the market this week? I got back from New York. I was in New York for NFT NYC. Didn't actually do a lot of the events there. Had our own event planned and basically just went for that. But I am in rough shape. I don't know if you guys can hear in my voice, but I think I got the Rona, but my home test said no. So I'm just, I don't know. Who knows? But
Oof.
I'm going to let Robbie do all the talking anyways. Look at this guy. Looking fresh after your bout last week.
Ooh, feeling good. Yeah, I had a bout of the Rona coming out of Consensus in Austin. I came home and got hit by a nasty strain, but I'm feeling great. I'm feeling back to life. What a shit show. Actually, the few days where I was like feverish and really, really under the weather were, I think, the days where like we were bottoming out. Like it just was one hit after another. And then the Three Arrows thing came out. And then the worries about how much shit is going to have to get liquidated and how many of these crypto neo banks are going under and how much that was like when I was feeling at my worst COVID wise. So
Did it amplify the illness?
it was like, it was confluence. I was like, this has to be the bottom. This has to be.
Your Rona was
the illness the illness is just so bad, like you can't really think about anything else. I remember being so sick in bed, you know, when I had Corona and everything was just like crashing like crazy. And I think for the first time in maybe years, I didn't look at it at all. Like it was that bad.
Yeah, it was nasty. And also it was like the day Jerome Powell, there's so many eyes, like everybody's thinking about the macro picture and what the Fed is going to do and rates and everything about that. I just love how now, I mean, all the crypto experts out there are now like Fed reserve experts and experts on money supply and everything. That it's just so touching.
That's my favorite.
Well, you know what's funny, Rob, is, you know, in previous cycles during the height of whatever the bearish price action is, people always become experts in something that's not related to crypto. And in the past, a lot of times it's been Forex. You know, you'll start seeing people, you know, talking about the UJ and swap, like all this different kind of stuff. And it does seem to be macro this cycle. And I mean,
it is.
I think everybody's a little guilty of, because I mean, we're all looking at everything going down and we're like, man, what the fuck is going on here? Like, you know, we there has to be some kind of explanation or some kind of like, you know, tarot cards we can read here at least.
I was gonna say that, Messi. I noticed, and you're not online like, oh, I'm an expert now, but like you are reading a lot about it. You're posting. I'm noticing you posting a lot of this macro stuff in one of our chats, and I always appreciate that about you. You're like, okay, what is the thing this year that's going to affect my bags? I'm going to learn about that thing. So I have noticed you are posting more about that stuff, and more from the sense of like, what do you guys think of this? Like, you're paying attention to what's important, whereas I'm just like, I don't know, fucking macro. I'm gonna wait till it's back to
the
simple.
craziest thing is even the people who actually are macro experts don't really seem to know what's going on. There's really no
100%.
precedent for what's going on right now, and you keep seeing people trying to make comparisons between now and the next. Or some
20s,
period,
yeah.
like the 20s, and it's just like I don't think there really is any precedent. And of course, I'm a macro retard. Like, let me just preface like what I'm about to say with that. So take this with an extreme grain of salt. But it seems like most of this inflation that we're having right now is driven by energy prices and housing prices. It's not like your typical holy shit, everything is getting really expensive. And I actually saw a really interesting tweet from Michael J. Burry yesterday. And Michael J. Burry, I don't know much about this guy other than he's famous for being in the movie or being portrayed in the movie The Big Short, right? And so he's made a god tier call, a call that was good enough to be put in the movie before. But he says that he thinks the Fed is going to reverse course promptly through an effect he called rubber banding in retail outlets. And basically what's happened is because the demand for these goods was so high before the war in Ukraine, before we started getting these really ugly CPI prints, that retailers ordered way too much supply. So the problem is now that there's a massive excess of supply in these stores like Target, Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco, and demand has been effectively annihilated.
It's actually in the commodity markets. Like if you go look at like steel markets, there's been a huge reversal. Like steel markets pre-inflation narrative were. And it wasn't just because we were all fucking buying tungsten cubes, but but like hot rolled coil and like steel bar and stuff. It was massive breakout to the upside, and has since massively retreated during this whole inflation narrative. Some of it I know has to do one of the big counter influences here, and what some of that has to do is with like these big supply chain issues. You still have it. Like I remember a few months ago flying out of Los Angeles, and when you fly out, you fly west, often you fly west and then turn around to go back east, and you could see for fucking miles freighters that were just docked or anchored, waiting to offload. And I think you're still seeing a lot of these supply chain issues going on, not only in the US but globally. It is kind of like, I wonder to what level, X food and energy, you're seeing an increase in prices there. Just because you can't get toilet paper, like you can't, like the sound. I don't know how appropriate this is, but like I have 2 daughters and a wife at home, and like I'm hearing now there's a shortage on tampons. Like it's insane. There's a shortage on baby food. Baby
formula. Yeah. Very recently where I live, because I'm like, ooh, I see everything I need. I'm gonna buy 6 or 7. I know I'm gonna need the formula, but I can only buy 2 now. They've capped us, which is like, that's fair. I don't want to hoard baby formula, but it's like, it's the first time it affected us. I'm like, because it goes through about 1 a week. So
I wonder how much. Look, I traded short-term interest rates for years, and when you trade short-term interest, like when you trade Eurodollar futures, for example, what you're really trading is the forward-looking Fed funds rate curve plus a risk premium, like a credit premium between the full faith and backing of the U.S. government and banks that are carrying U.S. dollars offshore. And I lived and breathed rate calls for years, and I think the bottom line is that the market somewhere like around like 12 to 18 months out, like they get, inside of like 12 to 18 months, they usually do a pretty good job of anticipating where things are going to go. But you could go like to the CME site and watch that CME Fed Watch, and they'll give you the current probabilities of the market. And just like in any cycle at bottoms and tops, you're going to see this kind of extreme push one way. And I think when you start seeing the second you start seeing numbers in terms of where the market is pricing the odds of rate moves relative to even what you're feeling as a consumer, and what you're seeing in the market, like the second those start to diverge, I think that's where really you get the bottom in terms of, in terms of treasury prices and in terms of, where this inflation narrative starts to die down.
So really my biggest question here is, do you guys think, and I want to hear like everybody's opinion on this, do you guys think that crypto manages to decouple, or are we still too young, too far out on the risk curve to perform independently of, S&P 500, things like that?
I think it is a very high probability it will. I can't tell you when, but
that's my answer too.
But what I can tell you is, in my mind, and there's a few different theses here, but in my mind, like my main thesis for Bitcoin and crypto, but let's just talk Bitcoin right now, because I think as Bitcoin goes, crypto does for kind of right now. But the main thesis has grown so much stronger over the last 6 months. It's not even, it's crazy. We have witnessed like geopolitical risk and uncertainty is undervalued, and it's undervalued during peaceful times because nobody's thinking about it. Nobody during peace, like it doesn't matter. Everyone's hunky-dory. Then during like war times with weird shit going on, it could very well be too late. And it's been too late for a lot of people. A lot of people have gotten their funds, their wealth, their value seized. I mean, the bottom line for me is that this non-sovereign currency use case, the product market fit for a non-sovereign currency has never been stronger. And I honestly believe that the market is mispricing that by magnitudes dramatically. Just that alone. That's like one thing. I could go into a couple of other ideas, but right there, I mean, have we not seen that happen with Russia, the oligarchs, the fact that your gold, your anything could be seized, that countries, bodies, governments that, a lot of times it's a 50-50 thing. Those countries don't even really believe in their own governments. Look at here in the US, like our government's a shit show right now. It's so polarized and like everyone complains about it. And those are the people who like were trusted to seize assets and make decisions like that. So the bottom line, non-sovereign currency of Bitcoin and then crypto, like that is proven out before our eyes. And I do not think the market is pricing that in. I can tell you why I don't think it is, but I think it's such a mispricing that we are going to decouple and it's going to be glorious. I don't know when.
It's going to take some time. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, obviously trying not to, I've been sick this week, so I've been stuck on social media. It's like the worst week for that. It's so dark on there and it's so negative. But for all the guessing and all this fear around, like, am I going to miss the bottom? I think is understandable fear, but it's ridiculous. It's silly. I'm going to go look at a Bitcoin chart here real quick. And this is something we've talked about a lot, but like, it's just trends. It's trend based. I think the best strategy here, especially for somebody who's just like, I don't know what the fuck to do, is just wait for the trend to be up again. From whatever level that's going to be, the trend will be up again someday. Right now it is, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. We're on a lower low right now on the daily. That could have been it. But we won't know until we make a higher low and break through this, and then we can say, oh, well, we've got an uptrend. If you want to go a little further, do it on the weekly. Because otherwise, let's go look at the weekly here. I mean, this is just an ugly looking chart. It was so ugly, I didn't think it was going to happen. I was like, man, if we go, if we break these lows, we're just going to be in here for years. Well, it's been like 3 months. So I think wherever that bottom is, it doesn't really matter if if it's around this level, whatever. Once we get the reversal, then we can say, hey, we have an uptrend, buy the dip. Like, that's probably the easiest, most sensible way to go about figuring this out.
Where's everybody at psychologically? Let's go through that, because we're all experienced now. Rob and I obviously been through an almost infinite number of cycles, just trading even in traditional derivatives, which, trading those markets when they get busy, the volatility is, I would argue that even though the actual vol of Bitcoin is substantially higher than those markets, but when those markets get in fast markets, it's something that you can never, sometimes you don't want to wish it on your worst enemy. It's so fucking chaotic. But where's everybody at? Like, Messi, where's your head at right now? Talk about how you've evolved over the years, because I've seen you even in the last 2 years since I've really, since you and I have gotten close, like, become what I think is one of the best traders in the space. And like,
sometimes,
tell me, yeah,
I think the hallmark of any good trader is, most of the people that I know, that have done really well, it's been off the back of a few really, really high conviction calls in place that they just strapped in, they held on to. Mentally, where I'm at, I mean, sentiment wise, and I'm not sure, if this is accurate or not. This is just how I'm feeling right now. Sentiment wise, I don't think I've ever seen sentiment for crypto this low. And I think that that sentiment has just been amplified by, just the dominoes falling recently. I mean, of course, Three Arrows, like Sue and Kyle, were actually pretty big heroes of mine. And to see their downfall and to see their demise, like, I really looked up to those guys. I thought they were rock stars, and I think a lot of people do, because they really kind of put off that big dick, like big bull, like, high conviction energy. And like, I really did love that about them. And I think, a lot of people did. You had a lot of funds that, in retrospect, were saying smart things, that were de-risking, that were worried about the macro environment and situation. And then on the flip side, you've got Sue and Kyle just going full tilt, like, borrowing uncollateralized money from people and levering up and like, in hindsight, looking back, it doesn't make sense what they were doing. Why would they were truly a big fund. Maybe they weren't as big as some of the estimates, but they were $billion, multi-billion dollar. Like, at that level, there's just no need to put on 4x leverage in
the face of
something
a
like
bear
Bitcoin.
market.
So for me, like, that was a major sentiment low. Seeing their downfall. And then seeing all of the fallout, because the fallout was particularly bad because it impacted retail so much. So we've just had multiple events back to back that impacted everybody, right? But it impacted normies more than anybody. People that participated in this shadow banking infrastructure that's been built, where basically you've got this CeFi front end where they make you feel like it's an official company. This isn't some shit coin or blah, blah, blah. This isn't a real company that's going to, I can give them $100,000 and give them my life savings, and they're going to give me some kind of yield on it or something like that. And it turns out these companies were just participating in, I'm not going to, maybe fraudulent, but maybe not, maybe just extremely high risk behaviors, with client funds.
I would say less maybe less fraudulent, maybe more negligent.
Just I think
Definitely
negligent is a much better
yeah.
word.
Do you think that they were just like adding long, and then this level was what really squeezed them, and instead of maybe closing it and shoring up accounts, they just
I
borrow.
read somewhere that they were adding from maybe like 40K or something like that. I think in February, Sue tweeted something along the lines of 90% of my bottom checklist has been hit. And then, and like looking back once again in hindsight, when you read their tweets kind of from that moment, and then everybody here has been like balls deep underwater on something. Like we know how that feels. You've got a knot in your stomach. You go to bed thinking about it. You wake up thinking about it. You think about it all day. Even if you're thinking about something else, you're thinking about it, right? And you have to imagine with everything that they had on the line, that these guys were under enormous stress and enormous pressure. And I think some of that stress and that pressure is obvious when you look at some of their tweets, when they were obviously like in a really, really bad position. But just in terms of sentiment, I mean, all of these retail outlets kind of falling apart, I do think it's good, and I think it needed to happen, and I'm glad it happened now rather than later, even though they had grown to relative size. DeFi works, and that's something that's been proven through this downfall. The vast majority of DeFi protocols that were over collateralized handled this situation beautifully. People were liquidated. The protocols didn't, for the most part, assume any bad debt. None of these DeFi protocols need a bailout, right? Who needs a bailout are these shadow bank, CeFi front ends. The scary thing, though, is are regulators going to be able to distinguish between the two? Are they going to be able to recognize that, DeFi wasn't the problem here? Because I feel like a lot of what's happened in the CeFi space is going to be used to kind of vilify DeFi. So I have invested in DeFi. I'm still a DeFi guy. I've seen some DeFi at really big discounts. I've seen protocols pushing forward. Of course, now everybody's just come to this, aha moment that, wait a minute, maybe these DeFi protocols, like I've started seeing people talking about PE ratios and valuations and revenues and cash flows. Maybe these DeFi protocols do have some kind of merit and do have some kind of value. Whereas before it was just pure like balls, like total speculation. Like I buy this, number goes up, great. Look at the flywheel, look at the Ponzi-nomics, blah, blah, blah. The discussions have changed a little bit. And I do think a lot of these DeFi protocols have mean reverted, and not just mean reverted, but overshot, and what in a rational market would be considered a fair valuation. So with a long enough time horizon, if you can pick those winners, which I think on the Ethereum side of things is more of the blue chip DeFi that you hear about, the Aves, the compounds, things that have been in existence for a while that have performed beautifully. But not only that, but things that are returning value from the protocol to the token holders. I think some of those things are really valuable. Now, in terms of like regulatory clarity on those assets, like that's the biggest pit in my stomach right now, because of course, we got Gary Gensler, on an interview a couple of days ago, basically saying that, some of his predecessors and other people have said that Bitcoin classified Bitcoin as a commodity, and he's not going to comment on other things. So let's say that all of this DeFi stuff is just straight up unregistered illegal securities. Okay. By classifying those things as such, when the SEC finally comes out and they say, this is what this is, that's what that is, there's your answer. Boom, there's your clarification. Is that actually a bullish catalyst? Because will it provide a path towards legality for the protocols that are legal? And let's say, for some other protocols that have played by the books, that have done really safe, but have characteristics of securities, what does that mean for them? If the protocol is, distributing a revenue, if the protocol is distributing dividends, it's just a straight up security, right? So is there going to be some kind of new classification or asset class? Because I don't see how the SEC can come in then and say, okay, only accredited investors are allowed to buy this. How can they say that when the ability to buy is permissionless? When anybody anywhere in the world, that has the will can come in and say, okay, I'd like to invest in this thing that has just been classified as an unregistered security. They can't really stop me, can they? Unless they say somehow it's illegal for me to buy unregistered securities, which is my biggest worry. And maybe that's like a nothing burger. Maybe that's something I shouldn't be worried about, but I feel like that could be a major
That's like
headwind, and I feel
peak.
like that could be something that could
Yeah,
destroy
to me, that's like a peak
lot of
bear
value.
market FUD narrative. Like sort of like the way Tether FUD always comes back, and it's like, man, like the underpinning stablecoin of this whole thing is going to come down. It seems like that's that extreme, and it's not wrong. Like, you're not wrong. That's the fear right now.
Well,
But to me, do you think there's more to it, Rob?
Well, I do. I think there's more to it on a couple of levels. I think even in the U.S., it's not going to be black and white. I think that Hester Peirce has given some real thought and thoughtful messaging on this with her safe harbor idea, and I think it's not going to be black and white. I also think that the world is much bigger than just the U.S. and the U.S. is the leader. Obviously, the U.S. Swings a big stick, but the U.S. is U.S. centric, and the world of technological advancement in finance is much greater than just the U.S. So I think there's two kind of dimensions here where I don't think it's going to be as black and white, and as like there is no just kind of like putting a cap on this and saying, no, this is all securities, this is not going to exist, no one can participate. I think that would be the more fuddy stuff that RT is thinking. I think it's going to be way more global, and even here that it's going to take time to figure out a plan. But at least we do have thoughtful leaders like Hester Peirce as a chair, as a committee member in the SEC to think this through.
Rob, there's a children's toy where there's like an empty box, right? And it's got different like shapes cut into the box. Now the end game is, I take the square and I put it in, or I take the cube,
square, put it in the square,
and I put it in the square hole, right?
Yep.
Now I can take the triangle and I can put it in the square hole. Which is kind of, I think, a good analogy for what I'm worried about, may happen. Of course, the bullish scenario, the best case scenario, and what I'm hoping for, because we do have lobbying in crypto. We do have people that are on our side now. And I think that's very obvious. There's a ton of money here. And look, the U.S. collected, record tax revenue off of crypto users. Like, it's a major source of revenue for the country, to where innovation and tech really isn't filling their coffers as much as it used to anymore. This is a new area for growth and expansion. So I would hope that they would create a new regulatory framework rather than just half-assing this and saying that all these things are this thing over here and this thing right here is this thing. Like, you can't just say, this DeFi protocol, while it has characteristics of a security, the token, you can't just say it is a security, because it also has characteristics of non-securities as well.
Yep.
It just needs a new framework. I saw an interesting tweet a couple weeks ago, just speculating that there's $1 trillion just sitting there on the sideline waiting to move in if there's regulations are confirmed. If we get that clarity, and I think that's sort of my focus with this, is that regulations, it's doom and gloom, but it's clearing the path for, and we've talked about this a lot on here, Gunny, I see you nodding there. It's clearing the path for a much broader acceptance of crypto and a much healthier, I don't know about healthier, but like much more bullish amount of funds that are just dying to get in here.
There's a lot of them right now. I know I keep saying it, it sounds like whatever, but they're either here or they're here and on the sidelines, or there's been new funds raised by existing fund management companies.
There's a lot of people, that are tethered up, that are in stables and things as well. And I think we're going to, have like a major kind of chasing event, You know, when you do see the God candle, I think that the bottom will be obvious. You know, I think when we have this God candle up, we're just going to see people chasing it. So the way I'm looking at this right now, and I saw a really, really good quote on Twitter yesterday from Degen Spartan that said, men who pick bottoms will have stinky fingers. And no, but I like that a lot. And it really spoke to me just because we are getting to the point of where things are considered extreme value. And I have no doubt in my mind that if you do play your cards right here and you invest well here, while you may end up with stinky fingers because you're picking bottoms, right? You still are buying great value. And if you have the balls to stomach the volatility that's ahead, and let me tell you, it's not easy because you could buy something that's great value now. Well, maybe it's going to be even better value down another 50%. But if you don't have, you know, if your life is good and you have, you know, your bills taken care of and you're not relying on this to take care of your obligations in life, it's just a waiting game. I don't know when, if it's going to be 3 months from now and what's his name? Dave H. Contrarian, you know, ends up being right. And, you know, we have the melt up, you know, and the final leg of this huge secular bubble. I don't know when it's going to happen, but at some point I think that you're going to be a pretty happy camper. That said, you know, it's really interesting because in the past, before we've had this big cleansing, you know, the logical, the smart thing to do was to don't buy the old shit. You buy new shit, right? You buy new narratives, new hype, because you don't have all these fucking bag holders that are still waiting, you know, at every little like pump to get out and to go to more cash. You don't have that situation. It's a clean slate. But now I do think that like kind of paradigm is going to evolve. And I think that that's something that's going to change. And I think that established players that have proven, you know, that they are Lindy, that their protocols work, that they have solid performance, I think we're going to start seeing some investable opportunities here. And maybe we won't have this massive bubble growth of those assets. And, you know, who am I kidding? It's crypto. Everything bubbles to an extent. But I think that there's opportunities for investment, for growth, you know. We'll see, though.
There for sure is. There's good stuff out there. I mean, the liquidity right now is extremely interesting to me. It's way less than it was. Stuff seems to be moving easier, especially in a lot of altcoin names. The biggest market makers out there are, I mean, they need cash. They're saving BlockFi. They're putting $500 million here. They just lost $500 million in Luna. It's
surreal, man. Like,
it's crazy. But the order books, like if they had $100 million just sitting in an altcoin inventory that they're making markets with, all of a sudden, do they need $100 million sitting there? Or maybe they're going to pare that back to $40 million and like suck $60 million of that liquidity out of the shitcoin inventory market. Like, that's real to me. That's going on. I think you could see it in these markets. That could be good. It could be bad. I mean, if you're trying to buy real solid stuff that's growing and there's a reason to own it, it could move pretty quickly and dramatically. But liquidity is not, it's not what it was 3 months ago and 6 months ago. Does anyone else feel that?
It's not what it was at all. I mean, look at the volume on perps or even spot exchanges. Like, it's really low now. You know, we did when 3 Arrows was getting liquidated. So rumor has it that 3 Arrows actual liquidation is the event that took us from 24K to 20K on Bitcoin.
And 18. And
lower.
I think it was probably 20. Did you think it just started at 24? I kind of think once it was like 28 and then 27 was like.
A lot of people did say that they started to kind of act preemptively because they knew that it was a high risk. So they started either not necessarily liquidating their positions or Three Arrows collateral, but hedging that collateral in their system. So people were responsible in that regard, and I think that we avoided some degree of damage through that. But the domino effect was real, and it is really interesting now to see people that were extremely successful in the last couple of years, like Sam, coming in to bail out some of these companies, and it does make you wonder, what his end game is. I know he is trying to make crypto look strong in the face of these regulatory headwinds, which is really important. It's really unfortunate that everything kind of fell apart right here at this critical moment. But you've got Sam on this hand saying like, these companies are worthy of a bailout. We're going to stem the contagion. We're going to do this and that. There is some kind of agenda behind that. But then you've got guys like CZ. On the other hand, where a couple of days ago he tweeted that these companies don't deserve a bailout and they should fail. So it is really interesting. Crypto hasn't been in a situation, to my knowledge, until now, to where bailouts have occurred. And
I mean, it's a Buffett move. Yeah. It's a value move, right? Like these in normal markets, something like a Celsius. Like I have an issue with like up only dynamics. Business dynamics, where like you have a borrow lend platform that has clearly a choke point, like a cry uncle point, that's going to have some massive liquidation, and there's very little thought given to things, to consumer protections or things like caps. Like you can't have this concept of one person coming in to a $500 million platform and being 50% of the open interest. It just doesn't make sense. Like that's not how this works. And the fact that you've had these companies that have come up largely started by engineers. These aren't guys that like worked in, that were CROs of big banks before they came into crypto. These are engineers that came up with some concepts and let them run. And in a centralized way, they were forced into custody and then really had no idea how to manage funds, which is another thing I think Three Arrows kind of opportunistically try to take advantage of. Good or bad, they did it. But somebody like Sam comes in, or somebody like with backgrounds like us, like with the Hxro guys, like you actually have real domain expertise in understanding how to manage this stuff and understand like why there are certain constraints put on how big positions can get in any one account, or things like how big of a piece of a vault you can be. And Sam has those abilities. And I think what perhaps, like, as much as there is this element of it that you maybe can price some percentage of what he's doing as like trying to just support the industry because of what they have going on a regulatory basis, I think he is seeing real value in the infrastructure that's there and owning these different components of a financial ecosystem that he actually will know how to manage correctly. And now getting it for fucking pennies on the dollar.
I think from a risk perspective, Sam has managed his risk extremely well. Not just Sam, but Alameda, who he's no longer affiliated with. You've got guys in the space right now with basically unlimited ammo that have the ability to identify value and provide liquidity where it's needed. Just in terms of sentiment, though, what do you guys think that the bottom is going to look like? Do you think it's going to be something where volatility just totally dies, volume dies, we sit around for a few months, half a year in a tight range, and eventually we break out? Do you think it's going to be some kind of big V bottom? It's really interesting. We still are extremely positively correlated, to the S&P 500 and things like that. And more importantly, or maybe not, the dollar is so fucking strong right now relative to other currencies. People always remind me of that. It's not strong, bro. It's only strong relative to the euro and the yen and blah, blah, blah. What ends up happening? And here's a real doomsday scenario that I've read about. I'm sure all you guys have been doom scrolling a bit recently. There's really nothing else to do.
It's painful.
Yeah, but what about something? Like the Bank of Japan blowing up. I've read some doom threads on that.
I mean,
They'll just
that's
keep
the whole
printing like they've been
thing.
doing the last 30 years.
They're straight chilling, man. The guy's sitting there. He's like, or bid for an infinite amount of 10 years for the next 36 hours, whatever you want to sell me. Like, we're bid. I mean, the volatility in the yen has been crazy, though. I mean, dollar yen. Let's see.
Let's
USD,
go look. What's the ticker
Yeah,
there?
136.
Pull up
USD
JPY.
JPY
And that shit's moved dramatically.
or 6J also I think is the future.
Oh baby.
Yeah, this is like a main cross. I mean,
It looks like a shitcoin chart.
all of them, dude. Like liquidity. Oh, I don't think there's ever been a better time than now to be a true like market maker or liquidity provider globally.
Oh, yeah.
People are just fucking printing money. They can't hire enough people. They just need to scale their risk systems and just be in the market, buying and selling, managing their risk. Everything's moving. Bond market. I mean, there's been a major consolidation in market making firms, and the ones that are existing right now, and like the top 5, the top 10, they are fucking printing money, like printing. It's great, but liquidity is it's not there. Like, markets are moving. No one's going to put their foot in the sand and say, we're going to buy vol here or we're going to sell it here. It's fluid. They're just trading.
You think the euro breaks up at this spot? Maybe that's the low. Because Europe, I have a hard time seeing how, like, if we think what's going on in the U.S. is bad, like, Euro's gonna get fucking trashed.
That's why, honestly, Messi, you say everyone says, well, it's just the dollar against everybody else. It really is. Like,
by the way, that's how the world is set up now. It's all interconnected, right?
Yeah. So I think like the dollar index is more that bellwether of like kind of risk off. But the bottom line is like all these other countries, they're in murky waters too. They're hurting. And I don't think it's going to be easy for the euro. And I do, like, they've got to manage all the different credit in there. And I mean,
they've got a real energy crisis over there too. They use a lot of Russian oil.
Yeah. Look at Sri Lanka right now, by the way. Like, they're like in a mega energy crisis.
So I was actually, reading something pretty interesting a few days ago about apparently Iran has just a fuck ton of oil. And people were talking a potential white swan would be, we re-engage in diplomatic relations with Iran. They bring energy production capacity online. We start purchasing a shit ton of Iranian oil. And in exchange for that, we return to the table and talk about nuclear deals, with them. Just something. I'm reading all sorts of fucking crazy ass shit right now. Maybe,
it's so hard these days too, because everything, like, where do you find the real, like, neutral objective piece? It's so hard to find.
I wait for the weekly W and send it. Like, real talk. That's what I had to do yesterday because I was online. I'm at home. I got like a fever. I'm sweating. And I'm just like looking on Twitter and all this shit. And all I just wanted to be like, stop everything. Just give me volume. Give me a W. Give me a breakout. It's going to be like, I think we're going to be in this little range here for a year.
We're going to bring maybe we need to bring fracking back.
Yeah. These narratives are they're going to be the death of me, though, this narrative guess game. Can I just point out there's people in the audience that are drinking every time I go off on mute to cough, and I'm dying. I'm fucking dying over here. These guys are drinking on my grave.
Are you going on mute though? Am I just hearing it on Rendezvous, or are you?
Yes, you're hearing it on Rendezvous. I am muting live.
Oh shit!
Sorry. I didn't realize you were still hearing it. It's bad.
No, I definitely think you got like it's like the Rona 2.5. version of
it's heavy.
I want to remind everyone in the audience, if you are participating in that drinking game, please remember to hydrate in between your alcohol. You're going to end up in a bad
because you're going to end up fucking hammered.
And don't go to New York ever. And if you do, don't go to a dead mouse rave.
I think one question people will ask themselves, like,
Ooh.
we're getting this more kind of geopolitical and like global economic end of the discussion. Like, how does this relate back to crypto? And at the end of the day, it's just a question of like, I think on one side there's this positive sign of the correlation of, you know, basic risk assets to non-risk assets, and the fact that you have money in the system now that basically buckets crypto or crypto assets with other risk assets, whether it's NASDAQ, whether it's general equities, whether it's getting into commodities that have much more potential, you know, can be much more potentially impacted by, you know, by current, you know, where things are at economically. And at what point, you know, that Messi was asking earlier, at what point does this decouple? Like, when do you start looking at crypto? Because the reality is, like, what could bring us out of this is just a narrative around, it could be a narrative around cash flow assets, or now there's a story that starts to pick up that, hey, you can start to derive some level of fundamentals from network value because of network participation and transaction fees. Like, whatever it is, like, that's all it takes. And so, like, I remember kind of coming out of this last bear, which really I think we can all safely say was kind of like the DeFi 1.0 that brought us out of it. And it was a small group, and that kind of started to really get that narrative, and people started making money. And the power of reflexivity in crypto is like no other. And away we went, and then Messi put the ape suit on, and it was fucking lights out. And there we go. Yeah. It's pretty much all it takes these days.
Yeah. No, I mean, we keep coming back to like geopolitical stuff, and I, you know, none of us are geopolitical experts. We follow it, but the bottom line is, I think it goes back to why my main thesis is so much stronger in my mind, and why I have so much fucking like bullishness pent up on Bitcoin and decentralized systems in general, is that like we are witnessing this currency warfare, economic warfare, energy warfare. We're talking about deals and where all we're going to get this energy. The bottom line to all of that is this need for the trusted, secure, decentralized system that can't be fucked by some government somewhere and people that mismanage it. Just code, mathematics, and energy that's backing it. It's the strongest network. That's the bottom line here. And like, if you think that the discounted future cash flows or value of these systems is crazy high, then you should be buying it, because it's not being priced there. So like everything we're witnessing, I think is just, in the end, you have to get through the risk off nature of how like Bitcoin is tied into institutional investments now. And yeah, when the S&P and the NASDAQ get hit, Bitcoin is going to catch some of that flow, but you got to work through that and get to the point where people like with real wealth and money, like they're saying, I'm using these dips to move into this. And
the Saudis.
And by the way, I don't, at least from like the fund side of things, and just like any large funds that I know managers of, or big trading desks, or endowments, whatever, nobody talks about Bitcoin. All they want is they want the ETH, Solana, AVAX community stuff. They
Remember
want
when Luna was
convexity.
part of that
They're
trio?
here to basically buy convexity at the end of the day.
Too soon.
They want to find, what did you say, Colin?
So remember when Luna was part of that? The Solana, AVAX,
Fuck
Luna?
and fuck Puquan.
Solana. Luna.
Honestly, like it. I'm honestly
Such a lesson. I hope that this crypto world looks deeper at what transpired and understands like what warning signs to watch for.
I'm a bit shocked that even happened.
I missed that almost by pure luck. You know, I was late on Luna. It was like $100. I actually did end up buying a couple hundred, like somewhere in that upper range, but like I generally wasn't exposed to that. And I levered up some UST over on Abracadabra like last December because it was like, it was stablecoin, 96% APY. And within a week, I was just like, this is fucked. Like, that's supposed to be my savings account. That's my safety net, and it's 96%. Like, it just didn't make sense, and I closed it. I would have been on the hook for fucking near 7 figures if I didn't close that. So I got lucky on that one. But, like, the whole thing was just surreal. I mean, it was just like one day it's 96 cents. Everyone's like, is it going to break? And I just looked at the UST chart a second ago. It's holy fuck, dude. Like, that's pain. And I feel bad because it was marketed as like a savings account. And I wasn't on, out there harping about how it was going to bust, but I was never comfortable when I tried to use it as like my nest egg. I was like, oof, I don't understand how that works. And then obviously the guys who dissected it after the fact, it was like, oh, it was so obvious. This was never, ever, ever going to work, which is a little bit hindsight trading, but
there are some like really interesting charts going on right now. And I see Dan talking about Solana a little bit. It's so when you look at the prices, when we had this L1 season, of course, Solana had kind of already played out. It had a big season early 2021. And then you see, this whole phantom AVAX that was at the latter part of 2021. It is interesting that these alternative L1s that were EVM based kind of thrived during this really high fee Ethereum environment, right? Because people like the EVM experience. They wanted that experience because it's familiar, but it wasn't affordable on Ethereum mainnet. Well, now we're kind of in this new environment to where Ethereum is actually really affordable to use, and Ethereum just works, and it is cheap. So when we're looking at the charts of things like Solana, things like AVAX right now, of course, the AVAX chart, and I think that they're suffering a bit from the Three Arrows Association as well. It kind of, people are wondering, is there a contagion there? Is there anything I should be aware of? When you look at, I think the Solana chart actually looks quite good. And I think that the bull case right now, if you were going to be bullish on an L1, of course, my God, I mean, just week after week after week of red. If you were to be bullish, I think something like Solana is really interesting because Solana never had that big DeFi boom phase. And I think Solana,
he's right. And Messi pointed out the exact reason why.
Yeah. I was
a long time ago.
I was more just thinking Solana boom itself, but DeFi and Solana read.
It never had. So Solana is actually, and I don't know if a lot of people know this. It actually, I think, passed Ethereum for the first time ever, or at least got really close. I know it's number 2 normally on NFT trading. Solana's got a really, really big NFT community, which is really interesting because, the NFT trading experience on Ethereum is really bad. I don't know if you guys have ever used OpenSea or LooksRare or any of these things, but it's very expensive
just to buy my my crypto dick buds. But that's it.
Yeah, but I mean, you see things like these DeGods NFTs, which are performing really, really well and have amassed this just massive community, and you've seen some like famous names, get involved with that and want to be a part of that. It's really interesting to see, I think, for the first time, organic community growth on Solana. And where Solana kind of course, Solana pumped harder than fucking anything, but Sol, right? Sol was where you wanted to be. Sol outperformed literally fucking everything in the Solana ecosystem. So you've got a lot of retail that came over and they bought, DeFi and this and that, and the token economics were really bad, and they were just ended up being down only like VC traps. But now we're in a situation where Solana's got this massive builder community, and in juxtaposition to what's going on Ethereum, like there's different things that can be done on Solana that can't be done on Ethereum. So I do think Solana is going to, at some point, I don't know whether this is tomorrow or in a month or 3 months, going to have its own little DeFi application boom, where people come over communities form when ecosystems make people rich. That's what happened with Avalanche. Of course, Avalanche has got a very dedicated community, but a lot of people came over to Avalanche and they bought Yield Yak and Joe and this and that, and they made money, right? So they're faithful and they're loyal to that. But we really haven't seen that explosion in Solana other than the NFTs, which I think has been something that's been outperforming really almost anything else over the last couple of months. The Solana NFT scene's been hot. At least the people that I follow that are Solana NFT guys are making it seem that way. Come on over, guys. There's fresh meat over here. There's money to be made. And when I look at the Solana chart, I think Solana's got a different chart than things like Avalanche or Phantom as well. I'm looking at this kind of like descending wedge structure, at least on a linear chart. And I love that play. Now, I don't think we're going to see a new all-time high on Solana, AVAX, anything like that for a little while. But that doesn't mean that we can't have like monster face melting rallies, or even in 2017, a lot of things had, they made two shots at that all-time high. Like if you look at the Ardor chart, ARDR from 2017,
I remember that.
You had that initial bubble and it came down, and that bubble reinflated itself over the period of like a month or two. I mean, two all-time high or two previous all-time high. So I do think that there's like opportunities like that in the market. So really you have two options here. Option A, you can say like, hey, we're at the bottom of this descending wedge structure. I believe this structure is real and that it holds. I can buy some Solana right now for what, 35, 36, 37 bucks. And I can wait it out. Or probably the smartest thing to do, unless you're, a fucking ape and you just can't hold dollars for the life of you, which, I think a lot of us are in that category. You can just wait for the breakout and see what happens. I think technical breakouts will catch momentum when they happen. And I don't think that there's a lot of liquidity on the upside. And I think that a lot of people are, bearish now. People are going to be shorting any kind of activity. So when we get the right market conditions, when the S&P 500 does say, hey, we're going to have some relief, we're going to have a bear market rally, whatever, it could last a month or 2, 3 months, whatever. I think that there's going to be some serious upside. There's going to be opportunities to make it all back. Maybe not in one trade, but a series of trades. Looking around, looking at opportunities, it's the safest thing to do right now is to play on either a strong growth narrative, something that you believe in the future, whether it's rapidly or slowly, is going to accumulate users, is going to accumulate TVL, is going to increase revenue, or you can play these kind of like technical breakout type things. In terms of like Bitcoin, what's really interesting for me, and Colin, I think you'd be interested in this as well. I learned to kind of look at breakouts before they happen using the RSI 20, and drawing trend lines on that RSI 20. A lot of times that RSI will break trend before we break technical trend on the chart, right?
Yes, I remember that from that Bitcoin like last July. You remember that breakout?
Yeah, you were saying like, hey, the RSI is broken out, and the price actually followed that. RSI is really interesting. It's been studied extensively, and a lot of people like talking shit on indicators, including myself. I think the majority of your trading decisions shouldn't be based on indicators, but the RSI is one of the few indicators that actually has predictive qualities out of all of them. Okay. So when we're looking at Bitcoin, though, if you put that Bitcoin on a weekly chart and you draw the bottom trend line on the RSI, we've broken down an RSI trend that's existed since like 2013, which is something that's really interesting to me. And I think that plays into a bit, and maybe we're all totally off base and this is a black swan and it's going to get balled back up and everything's going to be all honky-dory.
Tell me where I'm looking now. I'm just showing the old one. This was the one last year that kind of made me think, I should probably use the RSI a little more because
go to the weekly chart and draw the bottom trend line on that RSI.
Okay.
Not on the top, but the bottom.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. One, I think we have the lowest Bitcoin RSI value ever, which, a lot of boomers will say, oh, our RSI is in oversold territory. Like now it's time to buy on the weekly, which I think is good.
What do you mean? Like here?
Yeah. Just like
that kind of thing?
Yeah. Just like that.
Underside? Yeah.
So it's really interesting that we have broken this like really long-term RSI structure down. And another really interesting thing to me about this cycle, and of course, look, we can argue all day about the merits of Bitcoin dominance, right? It's literally the way it's designed, it will trend downwards over time, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they're adding more
It's not a fair
altcoins are
fight.
being made every day. It's really not a fair fight. But if you do look at Bitcoin dominance, I am wondering, people do seem to be more interested these days in investing in things like Solana, like Ethereum, like Avalanche. You know, they want exposure to the next big thing. It feels like a lot of the upside in Bitcoin has already kind of played out. You know, what if we are in a timeline now to where Bitcoin does trade a lot more like gold, you know, moving forward? And it's kind of this just stubborn asset. Maybe it's decoupled from the rest of crypto. Maybe it starts doing its own thing. Because in the past, like Bitcoin, and maybe it still is, Bitcoin was almost like a flow regulator for the entire industry, is the best way I can think of it. You know, when Bitcoin's doing well, that just opens the floodgates and money pours in, and money, you know, we get these inflows into the industry. When Bitcoin's not doing well, we get outflows. But this cycle, you know, we didn't see new lows on dominance, which was something really interesting to me, because in 2017, when we had our current low for dominance, everything was vapor. Even Ethereum was vapor. Ethereum had one use case, and that was ICOs. That's pretty vaporous, especially, you know, considering how high the market cap went. So now you're telling me that we've had, you know, 5 years of innovation and progress. We have L1s that aren't EVM based now, that where people are building. We have massive DeFi protocols. We have, you know, billions and billions of dollars and value locked in these protocols, and on-chain liquidity and all of these different things. And we didn't even make a new low on dominance. You know, something about that never really smelled right to me. And of course, like, I wanted to believe in the super cycle, you know, as much as Sue did. Like, that would have been fucking sick, you know, and we would have all made it mega, mega big time. But the Bitcoin top didn't look like it's ever looked in the past. You know, we didn't have this massive parabola and a blow off. You know, to me, I think a lot more people would have looked at a market structure like that and would have been able to kind of rationalize what's going on now. Hey, we had this big ramp up, we had a blow off. Now we're in a bear market because parabola goes up, it breaks, and it's going to take some time to kind of repair. But we had this really weird, like, bearish divergence double top on Bitcoin. So I think about, in the past, we've had these long, drawn out bear markets where you see, you know, months of zero interest, months of no volume, no volatility. And then hey, the new cycle is here, right? Because of halving or whatever narrative, you know, you want to assign to it. What is this cycle's bottom going to look at? And I think, you know, I asked this earlier, but are we going to look at are we going to see some kind of V bottom this time, you know, or do you guys think it's going to be a while? You know, was enough damage done through Three Arrows, through Luna, to where crypto might not look, I mean, everything looks like a scam, right? It just does. And to an outsider, especially, you know, and I know you guys all have friends that, you know, have missed out on these bull markets and stuff. They're looking at our whole industry like this is just a bunch of bullshit again. You know, is that a sign that the bottom is in or near? You're seeing companies that invested in Bitcoin dumping their Bitcoin now. You're seeing Elon Musk, who, this is kind of a black swan. I don't think people are really thinking about it or talking about it. Elon Musk, with a ton of Bitcoin on the balance sheet, has been talking publicly about he's worried about Tesla bankruptcy.
Really?
Things like that.
That's
so
dark. I didn't know that.
Would they sell the Bitcoin? You know, if things really got tough, okay, and Tesla,
I'm sure they'd sell that before a factory.
Yeah, I think that they would sell, you know, that
Damn.
Bitcoin. So I'm wondering, you know, if the powers that be, the hidden hand in the market, you know, the guys like Sam, more money than God, eventually do those guys, is the best way to contain the contagion to V-bottom this market so people stop getting fucked in the ass? Or do they just let it play out? You know, does this just fucking happen? We sit here at extreme fear on the fear and greed index, maybe even grind down to 14, 15K. another new historical precedent. Not only did the top not look the same, but this is the first time in Bitcoin's history that we've revisited a previous all-time high.
Yeah.
Things are different.
It's
now.
different this time.
I don't know what
shades of the same.
The aftermath looks like. And of course there are shades of things that have happened before, but I'm absolutely like baffled about what's next because I don't have any historical reference point. I can't say, oh, this is exactly like what happened in 2013. This is exactly how it looked in 2015.
I'm kind of relieved. Yeah, I'm kind of relieved by that because there was a lot of this like, wow, we've never seen this before, and these cycles, and it has to be different. We have to evolve past these like kind of low liquidity, wow, we always go to 80% off the highs, and then we always go to new highs. It's always a parabolic blow off top. Like, okay, now we can say that that's not the case, and we can get back to, a little more substance, I think, with analysis. And all of these scenarios you're laying out, and this is the stuff that I wouldn't say keeps me up at night, but the stuff that, goes through my head as I'm not falling asleep. And that's where I just come back to like, I'm going to have to simplify, because as soon as I put cash in at this 20K, 21K, now I got to pay attention again. I'm like, fuck, I don't want to make a new low here. Like I would want to have that cash back. So we go to 12, it's another 45% off the high or whatever. Like, so I'm trying to be really patient now. I've got some ETH, I've got some Solana, some AVAX, some Bitcoin. I've been loading a bit back. And don't get it twisted, guys. It's not like I sold where I sold and I just bought once down here. Like I have bought and resold and rebought like 4 times. So there's no flex here. But I've got some now, and I'm like, it's my final rebuy. I'm not going to sell and buy lower no matter what on those ones. But like to really deploy, to get past, because I'm still like 50, 60% cash, to get into like 20% cash, like really, I need a bull market. And we're going to have one. 99% sure we're going to see one. It's just about from where, what level and when. And it, historically, cycle-wise, going back to the thing I just said I'm happy we're getting away from, that would be the halvening. What is that? Like right here. That's a Bitcoin halvening. That's a really easy target. And this, whatever we get in between, that's going to kill people. Like a year, motherfuckers are going crazy. It's been 6 months since we were off the highs, and dudes are like, and sadly too, like people are getting hit really hard. But you don't get to go up, down, and then, like it's right here, guys. You can look historically. Up, fast, down, fast, sideways, long.
I mean, that's
new
markets.
up.
So, like,
that's markets.
It's like 90% of markets are channelingstocks.com, man. Like they're sideways.
Let's look at Microsoft.
Low to mid volatility sideways, and then you get breakouts and then you get price discovery, and on price discovery you get euphoria and you overshoot, and then you come back, and then everybody that got to the, like, after 30 years of trading, like I don't know how long it took me, relatively quick, to like understand the fact that like if I liked something much higher and like nothing has really changed about the narrative of that, like I'm gonna like it when it's in the gutter.
Yeah.
And like there has to be this element of counter-cyclical positioning longer term, because it's just how these things work. They overshoot on the upside, they overshoot at the downside. On the downside, everybody disappears because the feeling of down is way worse than the good feeling is of up. And they're not going to come, at some point they're going to come back in, and then they're going to feed that the meat of the move. And so I just don't understand, like, how do you disappear at the bottom and then come back in when the momentum's already started, and then try to catch the top? You just keep setting yourself up to get
it really
that's
does
crazy to me, but it's
feel
clockwork.
like it's going to zero.
Yeah.
Do you guys not like have that, at least in the back of your heads? Like maybe it's not like a logical thought, but we
for
drew
the first
down hard
time
enough and fast enough to where it's just in the back of my head. I'm like, man, are we? Like, is Dan Pina right? Like,
Dan asked,
right
fucking
now?
Zero. Dan asked earlier today, where's our head at? And I was thinking, for the first time this bear market, I the other day was just like, what if it never comes back? Like it just that entered my head. I was like, and then I was like, well, thank fuck, I'm still got some cash, and I am gonna wait to deploy a lot of that for the uptrend, because if it's not gonna be an uptrend, as long as that's gonna take. We've got Microsoft stock here, which I charted this like a while ago, just out of interest, and it's the same thing, right? This is not unique to crypto. It's it's human behavior drives all of these charts, and so that's why they all kind of look the same. From a certain perspective. And so it's like a hard, fast up, even though this was like 7 years, because that's fucking stocks for you. And then it was like a hard, fast drop, and then just 10 years of sideways. Just the washing machine cycle.
But why did
capitulation? And then
did everybody think that during that run up of Microsoft that on that first run up, that early
the
NASDAQ
cycle, bubble,
when it was down and in despair, did everybody think the tech suddenly was dog shit? Like, are people doing that with crypto now, where when you were like peak DeFi moment, like everything was the most advanced technology. Andre was like, could do no wrong, like the new Bill Gates. And then like in Bitcoin, it's noise, but Bitcoin is like arguably programmed to go higher over time. Like it just doesn't, it's irrational. It's irrational human psychology.
Well, and the funny thing is, a lot of people who are even selling here, they're just like, the pain is too much. They've reestablished their cost. They're like, okay, this is, I'm just going to sell here because, and you ask them, do you ever think Bitcoin will make a new all-time high? They're like, oh yeah, for sure. But they're selling here because people don't want to wait. They're impatient. And then they also were greedy people. Like we want the best price. And if the thing you got to remember is, and I distinctly recall watching a very compelling video right here when the price was sitting around 3,200, and it was extremely compelling as all these lines and charts and comparisons, and they were calling for 2,200. It was like, so no matter where we go, there'll be a lower call. Just like at the highs, there's always somebody telling you to buy the high because it's going 100. But
that was the one time I think when Arthur pulled the plug on BitMEX, like where I was like, okay, this might
Messi?
go down into the he's frozen.
It's actually a pretty Chad freeze pose. Yeah, he's catatonic.
Totally. It's rare that you actually look good when you do that.
Yeah, that's a good look.
But yeah, that was definitely an oh fuck moment, more because there was nothing to stop it. But also like, wait, I'm gonna be able to buy like Bitcoin at like $6 right now. Like,
I'm gonna kick him out.
You're gonna kick him out and bring him back.
Yeah.
I think the one thing we all just need to remember and know is that it can go to whatever level it wants to.
That's
and
right.
Just don't be the forced seller at those extreme levels. It just reminds me of Corzine with MF Global and all that. He had a bet on like the European debt that in the end he was right, and right is rain, and it's the path risk. It's managing your account, and it's not easy to do when you're in the weeds there. Some of the best of them have gotten clipped from it, and the Three Arrows example is just a massive one. But the thing can go to, even that Sunday it went to 17,300 or whatever on nothing. It was like such a nothing little shakeout, and you Sunday night we open up, or 20,500 again, like it never happened. We could do the same thing. It could go to 10,000 and people will be freaking out, but that it can go there.
Yeah. I think actually, for what it's worth, I think our capitulation move could be the breakdown to this, and it was short-lived, and then and then I'll recover, and then we're back in business. Like, I think that could be the end game, and that could be what you were talking about earlier, Messi, about a couple other, Tesla having to sell off or something, like one more capitulation move to mark the bottom. God forbid.
Yeah, like Robbie said, like a forced.
Forced seller to mark that move at 88.6.
Look,
even that can really move it here, like at these levels. Like, are people like going like, okay, I've held Bitcoin from all the way down now, like 70%. Am I gonna try to puke it to buy it back $5,000 lower? at this point,
Yeah.
or am I just like gonna put it in my back pocket unless like I have to get the fuck out?
Which is about sizing, like Rob said,
or I'm
path
getting
risk.
liquidated,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Keep your sizing on point, and that's where I'm at.
Here's where I'm like, what I'm wondering though, when are we going to get some kind of like mean reversion? Because of course it was the talk of the town. Like we had how many red weeklies in a row? Like we have just gone down and down and down, no relief, no bounce, nothing. At what point is it just enough to, even if it is just a big, mean reversion, like we get crazy upside for 3 weeks, we go back to 40K or whatever. Is something like that going to happen, or are we just going to chill down here until the moving averages, pull themselves down?
I think you have to see I think you need a little bit of an oh fuck liquidity crisis to really capture the opportunity to like put that type of bottom in, where then you just like start reverting back to the middle of the bell curve. But yeah, it's either going to be that, or it's like this. I'm more in the camp of this like long rounded bottom, like we see over and over again,
like the one Colin's kind of like drawing.
Yeah,
right
yeah, like this kind of thing. I'm just playing off this GAN because this thing's been taking care of me since basically the last bull market or last.
I will
bear.
say, like, some of the funniest moments in like Telegram groups and like talking to Messi in the middle of the night have always come during those times. Like, there's like no fucking volatility, and everyone's getting like a little loopy. It's
a ghost town right now. I mean, even the most active Telegram rooms that I'm in, like rooms with like 150 autists, like in them are quiet. I mean,
it's
nobody
a good
has
time
anything to say.
Yeah, it really is. I've said this before, but I mean, it's a good time to like touch grass, do other shit. I was stuck at home, like I said, sick last couple of days, and I was stuck on Twitter. I couldn't turn it off. I was on my phone. I was like, and I was just rolling my eyes the whole time. I was like muting people, like moving away from people. It's nasty. It's negative. It's pointless. Come up with a plan. Is that DCA? Is that wait for a certain level? Is like figure out a fucking plan where this happens, I will do this. And then set alerts to do that when it comes, and just go work out. Like, go do something else. I'm about to hit the gym. I'm going on a big health kick. After being this sick, I'm like, I'm done partying. I'm done having fun for a bit like that. And
so if you live within 20 minutes of Colin and it's likely you go to his gym, like, stay the fuck out of there.
Yeah, I'm bringing this to the gym. But like, play some golf. I mean, it's summer doldrums.
Let's be honest, Messi. This is the best time to read those white papers and become the best damn community member that there is.
Yeah, I mean, it really is.
I agree with that.
Being a community member is a meme, but I mean, you do have to identify the value, and you just kind of got to strap in. Like,
be there for a source of like a beacon of light in those fucking dirty ass discords.
A lot of times the things you'll buy right now aren't going to be very liquid either, which when I say you've got to strap in, you really got to have conviction, because you might be entering something to where there's no liquidity to get out right now. And you've got to anticipate that in the future, because of what they're building and what they're doing, that liquidity will exist.
What's the source of my
tough.
nightmares right now, apparently, because I had a fever last night and I couldn't sleep. And, you get these weird dreams that become real. And so I had a weird, like, feverish nightmare last night that I gig-alonged some shit. It was some weird exchange. And I posted it in our chat. And then the guys started selling into it to just liquidate me. And it was low liquidity. And I was down 50%, like, because I market bought in on a low lick exchange. Like, this was a fucking nightmare I had last night. And then I woke up and I was kind of in that half feverish haze. And I was like, oh, but I can't touch my phone right now because, like, I got to go to sleep and I can't sell because I'm in. And then I sat up and went to the bathroom. I was like, what the fuck, bro? Like, I'm not long. Like, I'm not perps in the middle of the night. So I actually had that dream last night, the low liquidity, stuck in a position.
It's like the opposite of a wet dream.
You guys were shorting into me to liquidate me.
Gives you a micro.
It was so fucking weird, dude. Oh, buddy. No more fevers.
But the decent thing is sometimes you can find some entry liquidity. Find those gems, dude. Yeah. Read those white papers. Find that shit that is really gonna like pay to own. Like they're out
What,
there.
yeah, like a simple starter. You're buying stuff that's cheap and undervalued that's going to give off rewards,
Yeah.
ones that are giving off rewards
Yeah.
in stables. Like you're just use a basic calculation. You're buying something cheap, like your ROI on your position goes nuclear as opposed to getting in when it's like FOMO season.
I mean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't buy anything right now that wasn't distributing, protocol revenue to token holders. Those tokens actually, for the first time ever, actually have value. Now, one of the big problems, though, a lot of these revenue streams, in fact, pretty much all of them, are derived from volatility. So, if we're in a period right now to where we've just experienced this massive volatility, right? These PE ratios and these valuations of these protocols still might be on the high end. I mean, they may look favorable right now, but will they look favorable in an environment where, Bitcoin has been in a 1% range for 3 months? Probably not. And even the best type stuff like GMX, it's something I've been holding for 7 months now. It's been great. It pays really well, but if volatility dies, then what happens to those revenue numbers? But it's better to hold something that is distributing that revenue than holding a token like Uni, whose purpose is to dump on you.
Right.
That's a weird token. Yeah, I don't never got.
It just doesn't make sense. Look, I think at some point, Uni is going to just go fucking crazy, but I think it's always just a pump and dump until that value accrual happens. Now, somebody in chat mentioned DYDX leaving Ethereum to build on Cosmos, which is actually really interesting because DYDX is, I think, one of the most revenue generating apps on Ethereum, period. Now, the interesting thing here, DYDX was using Starkware, which is the bleeding edge of Ethereum scaling technology. Okay, ZK Starks allows for massive throughput, massive scalability, but one thing that it doesn't allow for is decentralization. So they are moving over to Cosmos, and I do think the new architecture infrastructure is likely going to be lower throughput. And of course, you don't have this whole meme of, it inherits Ethereum's security properties. But the problem is with Starkware, you've got they haven't decentralized the sequencer. The sequencer is what orders the transactions on the layer 2. So it's very, very centralized in that regard. I do think it's interesting where you see protocols moving away from Ethereum, moving other places. And it's very interesting, especially to see Ethereum not just losing, these tiny protocols here and there. DYDX was really kind of a flagship protocol on Ethereum. And wow, look at that chart. I mean, it's just wrecked as fucking hell.
Yeah.
It's opportunities like this. And I'm not just speaking about DYDX, because the token economics as they stand are very much like Uni. The token is made to be dumped on you, right? At some point, though, those tokenomics are going to change. They're going to revamp. If you look at things like that, I mean, fuck, what is it? 95% off the highs? Like, it's these kind of buys that people make where they buy it, they have conviction, they strap in. And I mean, this thing, returns just to all-time high, and that's a make it play. The real question, though, once again, guys, some of my best plays, the plays that were early runners, the plays that really set me up to compound on whatever season was occurring at the time, were things that I bought when they were just wrecked as fuck, or bought too early, and then I got wrecked as fuck, and then I ended up having to be a community member for a long time. The best example of that is Ren. I bought Ren really, really hard in 2018, and I held Ren for almost 2 years. I was a good little community member. I knew everybody in the chats. I was moderating for the trading chat. I mean, I was doing all of my community member duties, right? And, I made a lot of really good contacts and friends through that experience, through this shared experience I was having with other people. But, if you do find opportunities like that, and you find teams right now, number one, in my opinion, is runway. These guys have to have funding. you can't be investing in a team, because right now you want to be investing in teams. Okay, products too, but most importantly teams. You don't want to be investing in any kind of team that doesn't have runway. That's the most important thing. So after runway, what are they actually building on, and does whatever they're building like have any chance of growing in some regard? Now, DeFi is really interesting. It makes sense to me because DeFi price action seems to be in line with fundamental growth. For example, Spell, when I think I talked about it on Shitcoin Church, and maybe some people watching this right now, bought it really low. When, of course, it's wrecked as fucking, it's like 95% down now, right? But when it did have its expansion phase, when it did go to the moon, it was alongside billions of dollars in TVL growth, and therefore revenue growth as well. So it was something that you could look forward to and anticipate. So something like DYDX, when you start thinking like, hey, when DYDX is a gas token, when in some regard it's going to be accumulating fees, from the underlying activities that are occurring on this decentralized perp, is it something that's going to scale in terms of users, in terms of revenue? And if you do think that in the future, this thing stands to grow a lot, or even if you think that, hey, it can maintain its current level of operations, and when that does start driving revenue to token holders, like that might be something serious. It's something to look out for. It's these opportunities right now that are just, down 95, fucking 98, 99%. Even if you buy the biggest doo-doo there is. Like, look at stuff like ZRX, if you had bought that in 2018. Look at stuff like Bancor, although a lot of drama and
saw that
around that right now. And we can get into that in a future episode. But even if you, like, when we have another cycle, when money floods in again, a rising tide lifts all ships. And that's always been my philosophy. I've been through a lot of pain and a lot of bag holding and a lot of community membership, during my career in crypto. And I haven't always played things perfectly well, but I do know how to be a good bag holder. And I've got strong hands, okay? But there are things right now that are the next 20, 30, 40, 50x. Just right now, it doesn't seem that way because it feels like everything's going to fucking zero right now. But if you manage
zero.
Look, we had 2 back-to-back events, and this is what really fucks everybody. Now, okay, I'm actually going to say 3. One of those events is taxes, right? Taxes was the first kind of destruction of wealth in crypto, and that happened alongside that first down leg as well. So not only do you have people losing, 40% of their net worth from paying their taxes, then you also have people losing 80% of their net worth from those initial drawdowns from the highs, right? Everything went, negative 80, negative 90%. What people don't understand is something's down 80% and you buy it, and then it goes down negative 90% total. That's another 50% drawdown, right? You've just lost another half of your money. It's just gotten even cheaper. And now it goes from 90 to 95. You've just lost another half of your money. We've had 2 of these events where people have lost like 80% of their capital in very close proximity to each other. So you have to remember, the space right now is very deflated. It's very impoverished. And there are stable coins this time. There's a lot of people that do have capital on the sidelines, but there's also a lot of people that have lost everything. It's been an obliteration of wealth in the space. And alongside that obliteration of wealth, these opportunities, these career-making opportunities, have begun to present themselves. So am I saying like, hey, you need to fucking find these opportunities right now and buy like right fucking now? No. But look, I'm an ape. I like buying. I like getting yield. I like getting involved. That's what I do. So do what I say, not what I do. What I'm saying is right now, if you were to say, hey, over the next 3 months, I've got $100,000 to deploy, and my goal is every single day I've identified this team that I want to invest in. Their coin is down 95%, and every day I'm going to buy $1,000 of this coin, with my capital. I think that if you have a strong enough stomach and you've got big enough fucking balls to just strap in, be that good community member, help the team out, help build the community, be present in the chats, help answer questions, make people feel welcome, teach people about the product, help them understand. I think that you'll put yourself in a good position. Look, I know it feels like we're going to zero, but like every single time in crypto that it seems like it's all over and there's just no fucking way that this ever comes back ever. Like it always does, and maybe this time is different, but it's hard to say that it is.
It's certainly not the time to give up,
and we're still here.
Yeah, no, it's certainly not a good time to give up. I mean, it to me, and like you said, if you got big balls, you could just buy some of that, and if you don't, or if you want to be a little more careful, just wait for the uptrend. Like wait for the market to say we're bullish, and it will. I mean, it will from some place, and you won't buy a bottom, and you'll probably wait to buy for another 6 to 12 months. But that's my 2 cents. Is like, I don't have to necessarily make the gamble right now, because the nice thing is every day you don't, and you're right about waiting, you get a better price.
I just saw someone wrote that Suzu's going live on Twitter. Is that true?
No way.
Oh dear.
That's true. We gotta get out of here.
Someone just
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we do have to wrap.
No, it's not.
Because I'm about to die. I need to go back to bed and shiver and sweat for another day, I think. But what are your final thoughts, guys? I know some people are some guys are asking for gems. I don't think it's a fake 3AC account. I don't think this is quite like. I mean, okay, it is gem hunting season. I'm going to share a gem that I am interested in. It's an algo stable, so buyer beware.
Don't even.
Messi, no. Okay, I don't want you to go
this
buy
has
it.
nothing to do with Hxro, guys.
I don't want you guys to go buy
nothing to do
it.
with Hxro.
But I have been on a few calls with the guys. Beanstalk, which I never touched during its V1, but I had heard about it, and then I actually heard about it when it got exploited. But they did depeg 3 times, and it organically repegged itself. It works. That is the whole point of an algo stable. It needs, and again, I talked to the guy, Plubius. I don't know what there's like a few of them behind this one handle, but he's smart. Like this. All these algo stables are like, well, we have reserves. He's like, bro, if you need reserves, you are guaranteed going to zero. You just you can't prop something. It has to entirely work itself. He's very smart. So they're doing like a replant to repay the exploit plus relaunch. Anyways, I bought some fertilized seeds. I think you get, you buy 100, you get 500 eventually paid out. So for people that are like, I want to read a white paper, go, if you want to know what I think, I'm interested in Beanstalk. Because one thing we did learn from Luna is that UST and all that, there is a huge appetite out there for a algo stable that generates yield. So that wasn't the one. So that, for what it's worth, that's the thing I'm dicking around with during the bear market. What about you guys? Everybody gets one. What do you got?
Oh God, that's tough. All I will say is that I firmly believe that, we joke about reading white papers. We joke about finding out who's on the team, betting on teams and that stuff. That stuff works. In bull markets, when number goes up and you can just literally monkeys can throw dartboards at price feeds and pick any name. We're in a different time right now. And I think you gotta dig in and find some gems and find some stuff where you have some odds behind you, like some positive expected value where you're going to make some good decisions. And don't just fucking pick some shit like that pump before or whatever. I think now is the time to really to dig in and check out. I mean, I know it's crazy, but I think now is when it pays off. I mean, Messi talked about 2018 with Ren and stuff. Dude, that was the fucking most depressing bear market of all time, but you find some 100Xs, some 500Xs there. And now is when shit is it's been dumped. So that's
we're getting the discounts that last year we were sad we thought we would never get again. And I wasn't too sad, but that was the thing, right? Oh, I wish I bought this back then. I wish I bought this then. I would have been, well, we needed a narrative to drive us down here, and it was macaroni.
Yep.
So I'm
without talking about a token, I will say, if I have my 10 seconds here, read the Hxro Network community updates and white papers.
pay attention. Okay.
Read the white paper and the Dexterity white paper, and read the community updates.
Yeah, and Blockmates actually just came on Twitter today, said that they're
He did.
they're going to write up some stuffs that he's excited about the those
Very
white
cool.
papers. Said
I
things.
like Blogmates a lot. I think they're
Yeah, we each actually went on their show. I think like back to back. Like
They do
I
a
like
really nice job of taking complex network and token economics and how networks work.
They distill it down.
Distill it down very simply. Yeah, they're great.
yeah, Messi, what's your bag?
So I'm gonna give one shill right
what's
here
your
now. And before I give the shill, I'm going to remind everybody. Earlier I discussed sometimes when you buy into things in these market conditions, you buy into something that's a liquid. So I want to preface this with saying that this is a liquid. But there's a new convex-like product called Aura. And
Aura?
It's AURA. Now, I'm not saying to buy the Aura token. I don't think that's the move here. But I'm saying to farm the Aura token. That's what I'm doing at least. And I'm not selling it. And what Aura is it's a lot like Convex. One of the issues with Convex, which is Convex is best described, in my opinion, as kind of a meta DAO. It's a DAO with the purpose of having a controlling interest in optimization of other DAOs. The problem with Convex is that Convex focused solely on Curve, and Convex spent most of its emissions acquiring Curve. And then at the tail, some Fraxis as well, which I think both are fantastic protocols. The problem is that Convex emissions now have hit the inflection point, and they're drastically reduced. They don't really have this ability now to accumulate massive stakes in other protocols because of that. So Aura is very similar to Convex. It's headed by 0x Maki, who is a proven DeFi leader and developer. He, of course, was made famous with Sushi. A lot of people that were exposed to Sushi during its glory days remember his leadership.
Is this Aurora DAO? Aurora
Well,
Finance?
you probably have to find it. Do you use Dex Screener?
Oh yeah.
You probably have to find it on Dex Screener. Once again, remember, this is very early phase. It's still in the bootstrapping phase, but the original intention of this is to accumulate Balancer voting power. Now, what's really interesting about Balancer, it's very similar to Curve, but it's actually a really, really unique AMM structure to where there's a lot of efficiency improvements because all of the assets for Balancer are stored in one contract, and then there's smart contract logic built around that. So think about Balancer as like Balancer V2 at least as a fully customizable AMM. I can deploy stable swaps. I can deploy metastable swaps, which have some characteristics of a stable swap, but allow for a little bit more play, which is good for assets like ST ETH paired with ETH. I can deploy AMMs built on top of that where the weights change, which has been used for these initial liquidity offerings. The weights change over time, and therefore the price of the asset, it's an efficient price discovery mechanism. But Balancer, from a FDV perspective, only has about a 500 million FDV. From a revenue perspective, it makes about 3 times as much revenue per Balancer token as Curve does. So you've got a lot of value in that. And there's about $700 million in liquidity locked in the protocol. Balancer just announced new token economics, very, very similar to Curve, where you have this kind of VE model. But the interesting thing about Balancer's VE token is it's comprised of 80% BAL, 20% ETH LP. So as people lock into the Balancer's ecosystem, they're actually increasing the liquidity of Balancer itself. So what I'm actually doing on Aura, and now granted, this is a liquid right now, is I'm actually staking Aura BAL, which is liquid staked Balancer governance token, okay? And then I'm providing some liquidity as well. And I'm farming this Aura token because Aura has the goal of accumulating stakes and voting power in multiple VE DAO systems. Now, given that Maki is also very closely involved with Stargate, I think that this Aura token will give you exposure to a solid blue chip DeFi protocol in Balancer. I think that the next token that they'll add will probably be something like a Stargate, but they could also add Curve. They could add Multi, which is still one of the most used bridges in crypto. They could add all of these different things. So it's more of a long-term, hey, I like Balancer itself. Balancer is extremely dumped off the highs, like 93% off the highs at current prices. So I can kind of stomach being exposed to something that's blue chip like that. So I get that Balancer exposure. I get to farm Aura. And then through Aura over time, it's eventually going to expose me to a lot of these other kind of high quality builder DeFi protocols. But once again, right now, I can't sell. It's a liquid. There's not enough liquidity for me to cash out. So if you mirror me and you do this, be very well aware that this is a long-term commitment. And once you're in, you're not getting out for a while. Okay. It might be months. It might be 6 months. It might be a year. But over time, I do think that this Aura token is going to be worth a lot. And you're going to, once again, get exposure to a lot of different DeFi protocols over time. Whereas right now, it's just this Balancer token.
That was a really good breakdown. I missed that shit, man.
I missed the very, church. Very similar to the Curve convex narrative, to where, I mean, Balancer has gauges now. You have the ability to direct liquidity on Balancer. But one of the biggest missing products, and a lot of times when we're looking for what the next big thing is in crypto, and I could be totally off here, a lot of times it's a failed narrative from the past that eventually catches traction and is marketed as the next big thing. NFTs are a prime example of this. The first time NFTs came out, nobody gave a fuck about NFTs. Look at
Marguerite the Corson, like
Crypto Kitties.
No, she was so early to the game.
Early, dude.
Nobody fucking cared at all. And then NFTs ended up being bigger than the DeFi narrative itself, which to me was mind blowing. Right? I couldn't even fucking believe it. But one of the biggest missing things from crypto is indices. We don't have these big crypto index products to where I can say, in one package, I can get an index that's via AMM technology, automatically rebalancing. I can actually manage a portfolio through an automatically rebalancing AMM. So like, let's say, I come in and I want exposure to 4 different coins, but as one coin outperforms the other, I'd like my portfolio to automatically rebalance and keep these ratios that I've set ahead of time. This gives me the ability to do that. So I do think that this ecosystem itself has a lot of room for growth. Maybe at some point.
Just help me out here. What's
doing research?
Look,
which one is it? Which one is it? There's so many here.
If it's Aura Finance right there, if you do what I do not think buying the Aura token is a good idea. Remember, we're very early in the emissions curve for this Aura token. So what you're going to want to do, if you do this, remembering that it's going to be a liquid for a while, is you're going to want to, right now, it's the best idea to buy Aura BAL from the stable, pegged 80-20 BAL Aura BAL pool, because the pool's a bit imbalanced and you can get a bit of a discount by purchasing it rather than actually staking and locking it. But when you do that, you just strap in. I'm not selling my Aura rewards. Like, Aura is going to go up, it's going to go down. They don't have gauges deployed on Balancer yet for any of the liquidity pools or anything like that. So there's a lot of things that are going to happen, that need to happen, to make this play out. You have to farm this and you have to hold it. Buying Aura is not a good idea, okay, at all.
So you're saying farm it?
Yes, this is a medium to longer term, good exposure to good quality DeFi protocols with a really, really proven track record. I think that there's big whale money behind this on the scenes. You've got guys like Tetranode on the advisory board. Like, I think this is going to go up given time, but you want to be a farmer. You don't want to purchase Aura because you're going to get smacked. Yeah,
this looks like the Gartner hype cycle, the Dan that we love. You come out, you run hot, and then you just dribble down into eternity. So, but that's the farming thing. So
it'll play out a lot like,
I'd like to have a little farm running right now.
Good case study. Look at the initial days of Convex. I think that the chart of Aura right now looks very similar to early phase convex. And if you remember early phase convex, there was a period of time where it was outperforming everything. It was super hot. And then it just went down fucking only because it was just getting farmed into the dirt until about $2. Then the whales stepped in. They slammed convex because it became a value play, and the narrative and the momentum kicked in after those buys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So literally, it looks the exact same as that convex chart.
So yeah, that's exactly what I was just saying. We're gonna come out, run it, and then just trough out here. All right, I'm gonna take another look at that. I'm gonna sick one of our analysts on it and see what he thinks. Dope, guys. I think it goes without saying, it's been an absolute pleasure, but I'm just gonna put it out there. Loved having the whole squad back. This has been my dream since,
It was fun.
Hell yeah.
Great.
January. This has
good,
been
man.
great. Now,
I'll come back next week. If you guys will have me, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
There he
So
is.
we've got a new show, The
I needed
Network
this.
Effect, and we're going to be running that weekly. We're going to be running DeltaFi every other week, and that's the plan. So we'll hear more about that. Follow us on Twitter at Real Hero Labs, and the rest of it. The rest is history.
Hey, from chat, I don't know if this is true, but people are saying that there's a 3AC spaces in 4 minutes and that it is real. So,
Okay, shit.
guys, that's where we're going after this. That's
I'm gonna go take a look at that as I go. I got an IV coming today. I'm like, fuck it. I'm not getting my vitamins. I need to get out of this fever. So I'm gonna
We
go
really
set up
think
for
we're
that.
gonna jump on a fucking stream right now?
They're saying it's real.
I mean, they got a lawyer there with them. Like, sir, don't answer that. We'll see.
I'm just wondering, what are they going to say? Is this an apology? Is it a?
If it's real, that's
going
gonna be
come on and say
popcorn.
up only. Like, what's
Yeah.
going
I
on?
don't know. Dan,
Yeah.
did you see that the head of CoinFlex just came out and
I saw that Roger was denying the.
put Roger
By the way, this just real quick. This story is pretty interesting. In the wake of everything, CoinFlex, it's come out that Roger Ver was the account behind the $47 million margin debit. Apparently what they did is they had an agreement where because historically he's always topped up his margins, they turned off auto liquidate on his account, and he's so underwater now that allegedly he's walked away from the debt, and it's put CoinFlex into a pretty bad hole, which they're now releasing a token, a la like what something along the lines, I think, of what Bitfinex did with the Leo token.
Yeah.
To pay down the debt to the marketplace. And now Roger just came on Twitter and categorically denied that it was him, which I don't want to say one way or the other. So pretty
Brutal.
crazy.
Well, it does unfortunately look
Bottom
like it's
things,
a fake.
baby. Bottom things.
It looks
Look
like
at
it's
the
a fake
price of
3A
BCH.
account, 3AC account. So we may not get to hear from the real guys. Let's be
They're not
honest.
getting
I
on.
know, Rob. We knew, but I'm gonna tune in because it's probably gonna be a really funny troll, and if they come out swinging with full grease, it could be more entertaining than everything else.
It's gonna
that's
be
been
Gamesy
Twitter
on
this
there
week.
making fart noises.
All right, guys. Before I cough into the mic again, we're going to sign off. Have a wonderful day. And as always, especially now, whatever you do, always play from a position of strength. Take care, guys.
Messi's doing